Okay, so first, why is my team focused on India? It's not just that we want to... the reason that we're focused on India is really because it's a really, really big market. This is the smartphone users in different markets, ordered by large to small. China is the biggest smartphone market with a really great distance. My team also builds things for China. Right now, it's a little bit more of a sensitive topic in the US to build things for China. So I won't go too deep into that topic. But
Isn't Google blocked in China?
Yeah, Google search is blocked, yeah.
Gmail is also blocked, right?
I believe so, yeah. But so what I'm going to be talking about mostly is India. Really, really big market. And not only is it a huge market right now with about 400 million smartphone users there, it's also the fastest growing market. So if you're talking about reaching a lot of users, for Google this is definitely very interesting because of the size of it. Like United States also has a lot of smartphone users, 250 million or so, but it's not really growing that fast anymore. It's a mature market. It's mostly kind of just people that already have smartphones getting new smartphones. So the growth is really happening in India. This is the primary product that I'm going to be talking about. So I lead a number of different products. This is the oldest product that I lead. By old, I mean it's been in the market for a year and a half, so not that old. But what this does, it does three things. It helps people clean their phone, which if you look at India, that is something that there was this statistic a couple years back that 1 out of 3 users run out of space on their phone every single day. So that's a huge problem in India. People save lots of stuff to their phone, and these phones are low-end phones, so they tend to fill up with things very, very quickly. So this was a very big problem that we saw in India. Second is browsing. So they have a lot of things saved on their phone, way more than we have. We kind of live more in the cloud than people in India do. So they need to browse all the things that they have on their phone, get great ways to figure out what's there, to watch videos they have on their phone, etc. Third is sharing offline. This is kind of like AirDrop, if you're familiar with AirDrop on iOS. The ability to share files without using the internet between two phones. Now for AirDrop, I think the primary reason to share offline is that it's very easy to do and very quick. For folks in India, the primary reason to do so is because you don't use data. There's not that much Wi-Fi in India in general. People have mobile data plans. So to share offline, you can easily like swap around a couple gigabytes of photos or whatever you have on your phone with other folks without using any mobile data. So this app we launched back in November. I'll talk a little bit more about the launch. Was really, really well received. It was quickly got to be the highest rated Google app on the Google Play Store, which we're pretty proud of. Right now, it's about it's more than 80 million monthly active users, and quickly getting to that 100 million mark that I'm talking about. And so again, I'll primarily be focusing on this product because I think this has a really nice range of kind of the whole spectrum of ideating, launching it, and then growing it. But I'll use experiences that I have from other products as well. So yeah, I'm going to break it up into 3 stages. First is the ideation stage, everything that happens before you launch a product into the market. Second, I'm going to be talking about iteration stage, which is just after you launch. Things change a lot, and what you do just after the launch. And the third is the growth stage, which is trying to get to the really big numbers of users. Realistically, all these stages are kind of intertwined and they're kind of overlapping. I'm just going to pretend for now that they're like separate stages, but you'll probably realize that a lot of the things that you do in the different stages apply to other stages as well. Starting with ideation. I think ideation is really about a lot of talking with your team, talking with all the stakeholders, as well as a lot of talking with your target users. And a lot of trying. And when I say trying, I mean building prototypes, testing these with users. So what are your key inputs here? Research is a very, very critical one. You go talk to users, try and understand users. We'll talk more about that. If you're at a big corporate, the company strategy is also very important, making sure that your product aligns and helps the overall company strategy. Then the tech boundary, things that are just becoming possible in technology. And fourth is feedback on the prototypes that you're developing. I'm going to go into all of these. So first, research. So what research looks like for us is we go into the market, India again, and we interview and observe our target demographic. We walk up to people, literally, like we do what we call street intercepts. We walk up to people and we have these scripts that we go through to kind of understand their behavior, understand the things to do with their smartphones, understand the struggles that they have with their technology. That's super insightful. It can be very useful also to read research papers, read people that have really dug into specific problem areas. It can be academic or non-academic. To kind of understand, like, hey, what are other people thinking in this area? Same with market analysis, understanding what competitors are doing in the area, understanding what analysts, like market analysts, are thinking about the market. Those things can be super insightful as well. So research by itself is a whole, like, you can talk about it for hours. We have full-time researchers that know this by heart and like exactly know how to do this. So this is kind of just the small, quick summary of that. So one interesting thing that we found when we did research in the market, we started like asking people about their behaviors and their struggles, and we started observing them, what they were doing. We found that they had hundreds and hundreds of these types of images on their phone, good morning messages, as we call them. So what we found out is that a lot of people in India, they're in a lot of WhatsApp groups with hundreds of people in there, and every morning, everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of people, they send each other these messages, which is like a nice cup of coffee with the word good morning and like some nice phrase on it. So what happens if you're in a couple of these WhatsApp groups, quickly in a couple of months, your complete phone is going to be filled up with these type of messages. So this is the kind of insight that I think only user research can really get you this, right? Only interviewing your end user can get you this insight. We'd never have been able to guess that this kind of thing would have been a problem. Then company strategy. Here it's about understanding what are the overall goals of the company. For Google, it's very nice. Every year we set OKRs, so it's very clear for all the teams, like, hey, these are the things that we're trying to achieve right now. And it's very important, I think, for your team to make sure you align with these goals. If just for the sake that when finance is looking at your team, they see like, oh yeah, they're helping the big company achieve their goals, so this is a team that we can get behind. So yeah, exploring how you can help the company, if you're in a big company, reach its goals. And here's one example of how this would apply to us. So right now, Google is very focused on building solutions for users to improve their privacy. So there are various different things that we try to do there to help users maintain privacy. What we see when we do research in India is we see that people share their device. The mother has a device or the father has a device and shares it with all the family. Or like one of the kids has a device and the other folks do not. So the devices get shared with everybody in the family. Obviously, if you have a lot of sensitive content on your phone, that very quickly gives rise to a lot of privacy intrusions, or at least it's very difficult for you to keep sensitive things on your device if this is the case. So this is very interesting to us, and this is something that we're currently looking into. Like, is this something that we can help solve, or at least like help by giving people the tools to help maintain a certain level of privacy in these situations. So again, this is something where the user research that we do and the company strategy that Google is pursuing come together, and we figure out solutions of how we can help Google achieve these goals. And then the technology boundary, that is understanding what is just possible, the things that technology has just been making possible. An example of this in our area would be running complex machine learning models on low-end phones on device. Machine learning has been possible for a little while, but generally in the cloud, very computationally expensive, requires immediate connectivity to the internet. Those are things that we cannot really rely on in the markets that we're active in. But what is getting more and more possible is running great models on device. So that's very interesting to us, and makes us think like, hey, is there something that we can do with running interesting machine learning models on the device? Why is it important to live at this kind of tech boundary? That's because here there's a lot of things that are possible there that were never possible before. So it's kind of a rich space of opportunity because nobody else has been able to do that before because the possibility wasn't there. I think working with a great tech lead here, obviously as a product manager, you're not necessarily the technical lead. So working with a great tech lead here can also really help to identify these kind of things that are just becoming possible. And then prototype feedback. I think that's one of the most important things to do during this early ideation stage. So what you do here is you ideate with the team. You take all the inputs that you have and you come together and you brainstorm and you come up with ideas. Of the best ideas, and there's many ways to kind of figure out like, hey, which ideas do we want to pursue? I'll talk a little more about that. Of the best ideas, you build prototypes. Or you draw concepts, kind of depending on how much effort you want to put into it. And those prototypes you test with users to get the feedback of the users on what they think of the prototype that you've built. It can be very enlightening to see what you think would work very well, to see users react on it, sometimes very positively, sometimes very negatively. And prototypes can be scrappy, and in fact they should be scrappy, because the idea of building prototypes and testing with users is that you're saving yourself a lot of time, but not actually building the product. So what you could do if you don't build prototypes, you kind of get together with your team, you figure out what you think you should build, and you build the whole product, and you launch it, and then you get feedback from your users. There's a very high chance that what you had in mind and what you launched didn't actually do so well with users in the end. By that time, like depending on the complexity of the product that you were building, you might have lost a year of time or so. So that's very expensive to do that. So the idea of prototypes is basically to shortcut that, to very quickly build something that gets the idea across and start testing that with users. And there's this common tool that I think people have probably heard of, and that's a design sprint, and that embodies a lot of these concepts. So the thing here is that you come up with an idea, and rather than building it, launching it, and then getting the feedback from users, you take a shortcut and test the idea immediately with users, learn from that, and then come back to the table, iterate on the idea. I think this is, whether or not you exactly follow design sprints, it's kind of a set paradigm with steps in it, etc. I don't think that matters as much, but the concept of prototype testing is very important if you want to build successful products. So yeah, that's kind of the way it goes. You build prototypes and you verify them. One other thing that I want to say here, so what we do in my team is we build prototypes from an idea and we test them, and that's kind of a two-week turnaround, maybe 2-3 week turnaround for prototypes. I also know of other teams, for example, I've heard this about Google X, that they try to test like 20 ideas in a week. So it kind of depends, I think, depending on the circumstances and how easy it is to build these prototypes for you. There's different speeds at which you can build them and test them. For us, we take a couple weeks to do them, but yeah, I think anything is fine. So you build your prototype, you verify it. Very often then you get back to the table and build another prototype, verify it. That's kind of an iterative process. After a while, you start building something that is a bit more like a real product, and you can call it like your alpha or your beta. It will be missing a lot of things. It will be missing localization. Will have a lot of bugs. It will break all the time. That's all fine. A lot of features are missing, but something that you can, again, get into the hands of some users and get feedback on it. That feedback loop is extremely important. And after a while, if you're getting comfortable, like, hey, this has a certain amount of value for users, then you finalize it, you wrap it up, you call it your MVP or whatever you want to call it, and you launch it into the market. So iteration is all about like getting data, getting a lot of external input, and you'll have a lot of it, and taking action on it. It's kind of an easy stage, I would say. It's the easiest of the three. So we didn't actually launch our product. We made a mistake and it leaked. It leaked into the market. It wasn't ready. It was like a couple months from being ready. It was extremely buggy. Logging wasn't working. Half of the features were missing. But it got into the market. And then we kind of just owned up to it. And we said, OK, well, now here's the product. We'd love to hear your feedback. And it quickly got a lot of users and a lot of feedback. So your key inputs in this stage are you get user feedback. A lot of users will tell you what they think about it. And you get usage data, which is the quantitative stuff that you can measure how are people using the product. So the type of user feedback that we would be getting would be app reviews, in-app feedback. Within the app, you can give feedback. A lot of people do that. Forums such as Reddit. There's a lot of discussion on Reddit. as well as media. We get a lot of different press, and all the press give their opinion on it as well as the people in the comment sections on the press articles, they give their opinions as well. So there's no shortage of opinions once a product is in market, or at least for us, there was definitely no shortage of user feedback. These were two very typical types of feedback that we saw when this product just got launched or leaked into the market. The first one is a positive one. The person is basically saying that it's super useful that you can figure out the things you want to delete. It's very easy to delete a lot of things with this app and clear up a lot of space. We got a lot of those. The vast majority of the research that we got were those. Then the second is one that said, the app is too basic. There's no option to display all the folders on my file. I can't see the root directory like a full file manager. I can't move around my zip files. So these kind of comments of like, this is way too basic. And that is something that we also saw a lot, which was very interesting, because we put this product into the market primarily as a cleaning app when we launched it, to clean up the space on your phone. However, people were considering it, were thinking about it as a file manager. Not everyone, but some people were thinking about it as a file manager. And they were criticizing the app for not being a full-fledged file manager, which we kind of acknowledged, because that was never the intention that we had with the app. But it was fair feedback that we were getting.
A local file manager, you mean?
A local file manager, yep. And so one thing I think that's good to keep in mind is that you're going to get a lot of feedback, but the feedback you get is not necessarily from your average user. It's what I call feedback people. It's the kind of people that enjoy going online and telling people what they think about software. My mom, for example, is not going to go online and tell people what she thinks about software. It's a specific demographic of people. I think the type of people that do this are tech-savvy folks, early adopters, tend to be men predominantly as well. So that's very good to keep in mind. You're going to get a lot of feedback without you having to ask for it, but it's not necessarily from your average user. It's from a specific group of people that like to give feedback on products. Then usage data. I think very interesting usage data that you can get in the beginning of launching a product are things such as feature usage. Which features are people using in the app? Which features are they not using? Retention drivers. Which features are correlated to high retention? So for example, for us, it was people that were cleaning that was correlated to high retention. People that were doing some other stuff was not really as correlated to high retention. Error reports, figuring out stuff that's going wrong in your app. You try to do quality assurance within your team. You can do quite a bit of testing before you launch. But in reality, once it's on like 1 million phones, there's a lot more diversity of devices that you're going to reach than what you were reaching before. And surprising statistics can be very helpful as well. So this was our feature usage graph, and the blue one was people that were cleaning their smartphones with the app, which is indeed what we expected, because that's how we were messaging the app, how we put it in the market, everything. Like the Play Store was talking about that. When you opened the app, that was the first thing that everything was about. So we were like, great, that's indeed what we expected. The second one, the red line, was people using it as a file manager, which again was not really what we expected. We were pretty surprised that so many people were using it for that. Then the green one, I believe, was for offline sharing. We had hoped that more people would be using that. Because offline sharing is something that requires both parties to have the offline sharing tool, we didn't see as much pickup of that in the early stages. Growth. This is really about analyzing, estimating, testing. It's a very quantitative endeavor, I would say. We have a product marketing manager who's very quantitative, who loves this kind of stuff. We work closely together on this. I think he's great. And I think that's the kind of person you need, somebody that's super data-minded. So first what we do, we think about channels. We lay out like, okay, what are all the kind of options we have for growing this thing? First is organic. Now we're just going to rely on people that tell each other about it, word of mouth, maybe about press writing about it. That's one channel that you're going to have. Another channel is partnerships. Can we do some kind of partnership with another company that would help us grow this product? This was the biggest for us, so I'll go deeper into that. Ads, you can just plain put ads out there and say like, hey, download this product, it's going to be great for you. You can do referrals, where you reward people for referring the app or referring the product to other people. It's also very, very common, obviously, in technology, in consumer tech. Cross promotions, where you ask another product, like, hey, why don't you promote my product and I'll promote your product? This is something that we also did. And feet on the street, where you put people out there on the street with a bunch of flyers and you say, hey, go download this app, or like they sit in the kiosk and help people download the app. What I did is I kind of laid out all these channels and started thinking about, okay, how could we go about these channels? What would it mean to rely just on organic? What would it mean to rely just on partnerships? If we do that, what would the cost be? What would the potential be? Within the budgets that we have, what could we achieve? So beyond these kind of numerical things of the potential and the cost, I would also think about how would we do it? Like, for example, if we would do ads, where would we show ads? What type of network, etc. So thinking through these dynamics a little bit, figuring out what could be a good strategy there, and then considering your budget, what is the potential and what would that cost? Now, what we found is that partnerships pretty quickly popped up as something that had this kind of 100 million user potential, whereas a lot of the other channels within our budgets did not. Like ads, if you have a lot of money, you can just like put all of it on ads, and you can grow it as big as you want. But you need a lot of money for that. Same with referrals. Like if you give $5 for every new user for referring new users to an app, that's going to work, but it's going to be very, very costly for you. I think feet on the street. Everybody's always excited in my team about feet on the street. They're like, oh great, we're gonna go around and we're gonna go to these markets and get people to download it. But you run the numbers and it's like, great, then we get 1,000 people, we hire a person for a day. It just doesn't really work. So we see teams doing it. I haven't figured out how to do that at scale, at good cost. I know some other companies actually have, or actually have been somewhat successful doing this. I don't know how to do that. Cross promos, we do some of it. We found that it doesn't have the right scale that we need. Referrals, we do some of it. We do unpaid, and now we do paid ones as well. This is actually the paid ones that we do. We're actually able to get really good cost, how do you call it, like a return on investment there. The only problem with it is we don't get the volume really that we want. So very cost effective, but not that much volume. Ads, we run some ads. It's nice because it's just like it's kind of a tap that you can turn open and close, and you get users, and it's pretty predictable. Downside is it's costly. It's just like putting money in, and that's what you get. Partnerships is what we figured. That is where the real growth opportunity was. We started talking to smartphone manufacturers, and we figured that they had a pretty big need, because they saw the same problems with their users of like, they're all out of space all the time, and our phones just don't work. Once a phone is like more than 80% full or 90% full, and particularly these low-end phones, they just kind of stop working. So for them, that's terrible, right? Like you're selling a phone, half of your users, they give you a bunch of negative feedback because they're like, my phone isn't working, help me get my phone to work. And we figured all of them have a file manager on their phone as well, so this is a great way to position that one app solving these multiple use cases for them. And that actually slowly but steadily got a lot of traction, and we got a lot of the major smartphone manufacturers that were like, oh yeah, this is a pretty good idea, why don't we do that? And this is the place where we got mostly free and some paid deals. We got a lot of traction and a lot of skill. So this is, unfortunately, I should have put the graph at the beginning as well, but red is so these are the weekly acquisitions, so weekly new users that we get on the app. Red is partnerships. So that is, by now, it's very clear where are we getting our growth. It's from partnerships. If you would have looked, and I think like blue is organic if I'm not mistaken, if you would have looked at the beginning, it would have been all blue, right? It's pretty much all word of mouth, some press writing about it, some people talking on forums about it. And if we would have not figured out the partnerships angle here, and would have just relied on organic and maybe some ads, like this is what we would have had. So then we wouldn't be at the 80 million active users, we would have been at what, maybe 5 million active users. So yeah, through all that experimentation, we were able to figure out, hey, this is the best lever that we have. Then we went very deep on it and started making sure that these partners were extremely happy with what we were building. Going to them and really figuring out, hey, what do you need? Is there anything else we can help with? Serving what they needed, and that got us a lot of growth. So strong analytics are very important. Defining key metrics. So we have kind of 4 key metrics that we look at all the time. One is 28-day active users, which is our active users metric. It's a pretty standard one that we use at Google. There's also other ones, there's weekly active users, etc. We use 28-day actives. We look at week 1 retained users, which is a very quick sense of like, hey, are users just opening the app once or are they coming back? Then we use week 4 retained users, which we kind of use as a proxy for what is long-term retention like. And we use the Google Play rating to see like, hey, are people still positive about the stuff that we're building? What are this? Are they giving it good reviews? And those key metrics, so we look at them globally, but we also look at them by market, and we look at them by partner. We look at them by growth channel. We kind of split it up in a lot of different ways to figure out like what is working, what is not working. Dashboards feels like a pretty obvious one, but like you need a lot of dashboards to be able to really dig into that type of data. We don't have a full-time analyst on my team, unfortunately. We do have a part-time marketing analyst, and he, they changed around. They built a lot of really useful dashboards where we can really drill into this kind of data. Ad hoc analyses. Very often you have a specific question, like actually I have a couple of examples of that, but like you have a specific question on your mind about growth. And somebody does an analysis to really dig into understanding that question. So you go through all the data to try and understand the answer to a specific question. And very important, the weekly growth meeting. So we come together once a week for an hour with marketing, business development, product management, engineering, design sits there as well. Everybody comes to finance sits there as well to check that we're spending the money wisely. Everybody comes together and we go through all the metrics, we go through all the analyses that have been done that week. And we kind of talk, hey, is there any action we need to take? How is stuff going? So this is an example from last week, what we talked about in this Growth Weekly. So again, we went through the key metrics. Is everything looking good? Everything was looking good. The retention metrics going up. The rating was stable. It's pretty much always stable. The usage was going up still. It's kind of we expected. We dug into the acquisitions, like how many new users did we get, what channels did they come from, what markets did they come from, etc. We dug into pre-installs to see like, hey, which partners are driving most growth right now. We saw like one partner was declining in growth, and then like business development had an action item from that to figure out like, hey, why is this partner declining? Are they selling fewer phones, or is there something else going on? We dug into feature usage, again, by different channels, figure out, hey, what are these different users in these different segments doing was very useful. Retention by country is something that we looked at. We looked at onboarding by app version. This was a pretty interesting analysis. So we've done a lot of, what's pretty important is that people get the app, they open it for the first time. Very often they, in particular with these pre-installs that are important for us, they don't really have context about the app. So they land in the app and they kind of, they have to figure out by themselves what it's about, how to use it. In particular for people that, for example, have a phone in English and don't speak English, that onboarding can be pretty tricky, like understanding what the app is about. So like onboarding success, which we call, for us that's somebody opening the app to taking a meaningful action in the app, and we have defined a couple of like actions that we consider meaningful. That is very important to us. And over the last year or so, we've done a lot of improvements in the app to try and make that onboarding more successful. And so the week before this, we saw kind of a worrying trend. We saw that the onboarding success was going down. And then we looked into it and we did an analysis on that to kind of figure out, hey, why is it going down? Now what happened is we looked at this by app version, like how is onboarding success looked over all the different app versions that we have. And we found that it improved actually for every app version. So the improvements that we made were actually working for us. But we found that one of our partners was still shipping an app version that was like a year old. So a lot of like millions of users were getting a version of the app that was extremely old, and the app wasn't as good back then. So there were people that were using the app, that version of the app, they weren't really figuring it out, and that was taking down our onboarding success. I don't know if that was a clear story, but basically an analysis that we dug into to figure out what was going on a metric that we cared about. We talked a bunch about referrals in India, how they compared to some of the other channels that we have, how they were working. Again, they were working pretty well, just not really at the scale that we hoped, but they were working pretty well. So it was an interesting conversation. So yeah, that's kind of to conclude the growth stage. It's analyzing what's happening, implementing a bunch of stuff, trying a bunch of stuff, again analyzing what's happening and taking action on it. It's a continuous iterative process, very data focused, very test-driven. For us, this worked out really well. We've grown from 0 to now close to 100 million users by taking this approach. Of course, it's not going to be like that for every product. Some might be less successful, some might be more successful, but this is the approach that we've taken to growing the product. So that's it.